There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. All right, welcome to Big in the Community. We are back, 2024, new year, same podcast, same old thing, but new people, new guests. I'm going to start us off with a quote and then introduce our guests. So, quote comes from Robert Smalls, a U.S. representative who was actually born into slavery and then later on became a U.S. representative, lots of other accolades. But the quote is, "My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves them to be equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life." So again, that's Robert Smalls. But today, here, our guest, Chiante Hamilton, Executive Director for Society for History and Racial Equity, or SHARE.
Hi, good afternoon. Glad to be here. Happy New Year, like you mentioned. It's a really exciting time to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming, first of all.
Of course.
And thank you for the work that you're doing as well. I see it on Facebook, social media, LinkedIn, all the things. I'm like, man, okay.
Yeah, you got to meet the people where they are.
Right. So. I was like, I'm trying to get like you.
You know.
All the things that you're doing. But it is good work, so thank you for it.
Yes.
So first question.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in your current role, and how long have you been in Kalamazoo?
I have been in my current role in April of this year. It'll mark 3 years. COVID years, of course. You know, time kind of is a little fluid, but definitely 3 years. And I have been in Kalamazoo actually 10 years. I came here for my undergraduate education in 2014. So it's a big milestone year for both.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow, a decade.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Where were you before?
I'm originally born and raised in Detroit, Michigan,
okay.
And have lived there my entire life, of course. And I travel back and forth, but Kalamazoo has become my second home. So.
Okay. What do you think of Kalamazoo coming from Detroit?
Of course, it's smaller, right, in demographics and all of those things, but definitely is a place where you can wrap your arms around it, right? Like you can, everybody knows somebody, and that's really nice to have. In Detroit, oftentimes, you know, people that live on the west side have never been to the east side or vice versa, right? So it's just a really great opportunity to get to know people, really engage, to be able to create community. I think everyone's oftentimes, you know, you might see someone in a meeting in the morning and then see them again the next day or in the afternoon. So it's just really nice to create and build those relationships over time. And that's what really got me to stay here in Kalamazoo, was the relationships that I built and the community that I created.
I like that. A lot of people say they stay for the people.
Yes.
People, resources, that sort of thing. So how would you say you engage with the Kalamazoo community?
Really through volunteering. As an executive director, right, you have to be everywhere. You have to be engaged. I think we were together not too long ago at the during Halloween at the Douglas, right? Like just being out there to see kids, dressing up myself, and just really being able to engage. New restaurants in this community are popping up everywhere.
Yep.
So that's been really great to be able to, Dabney and Company and just other places that are popping up in community, and just really being able to do that has been really great. Volunteering, doing some running in community. I think we just had like the 5K, so I was able to get out there and volunteer in community. So that's been fun too.
Nice. No, it is funny how many times like we'll run into like people we know and be at the same things. And I didn't even recognize you because it was Halloween and you were dressed up. I was like, hey,
I think I know this person, right?
Yeah.
Caroline?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was dressed up as Caroline, so I had blue hair and everything. So,
right.
But it was definitely for the kids, and that's what it's really all about. Like, how can they see someone that looks like them, right? In character, and really just be that influence for them. So that's really what it was all about for me that day.
It's big seeing people who look like you, sound like you.
Yes.
Especially in places where we don't regularly see that or experience that. So again, awesome work that you're doing.
Of course.
So how do you collaborate with, say, like the Promise or other organizations?
Yeah. So in communication or in support with the Kalamazoo Foundation. I've been able to sit on the Love Where You Live Scholarship Committee and providing funding to Kalamazoo Promise students. That's one of the great joys that I get, reading applications of students and just learning about their story, right? Because I think oftentimes we are handing out money and doing these different things, but like this person has a story, right? This student has a need, yes, but also, you know, what got them to this place? Do they even have support? Me, like I mentioned, I'm from Detroit. And we don't have the Promise. We do have a Detroit Promise, but it's not as developed as the Kalamazoo Promise. And I just wish I had that support, right? I wish I had that opportunity to just tell my story. I unfortunately didn't have the parents at home that were supporting post-secondary education. They thought it was a waste of time. They thought, you won't get what you need out of it and all of those things. But really had to forge my way and persevere through that. So just really grateful, honestly, for the scholarships and the opportunities that I got as well. So that's one way that I've been engaging in community for several years. I support on the public policy team for the YWCA here in Kalamazoo. So how do we also make those policy changes when it comes to domestic violence and things that are going on in the home? Because kids can't show up to school as their best selves if they're dealing with home trauma, right? So just making sure that I'm doing my part with my area of influence. And these are just things that I do outside of my 9 to 5 to just make sure I'm still engaging in community and supporting.
Yeah, that's big because it's not just, a lot of times it's not just the money.
Exactly.
It's not just the scholarship.
Exactly.
There's so many things that come into life that either help you or maybe inhibit you from going to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily learn those things in school.
Right.
You don't learn like, okay, this is how you move in this space. This is how you operate in a marriage. This is how you, this is how you raise your kids.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of things that you just don't learn unless you have somebody who says they're going to take the time and actually show you.
Yeah.
Or you just need to be able to see it. A lot of students, you don't get to see what a healthy marriage looks like. You don't get to see what when you move to that next stage of life,
what it looks like. Like for me, one of the things I just got married, so I'm hearing you, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you. I hear you. But one of the things for me, like coming to college, I didn't know how to drive. My first time driving was during my road test, right? And people are like, that's crazy to think like your first time behind the wheel, you had to take this test. But I only had the opportunity here in Kalamazoo to do it. My family, like I said, didn't support or just didn't have opportunity for me to drive a car, right? So like, how do I take the opportunity that I have? I was here, I think, for a summer, took the test. Of course, I failed it, right? It's the first time you're behind the wheel. Right. But the person saw something in me and was like, well, come back tomorrow. She was like, take some time tonight. You're going to be fine. You're probably just a little nervous. Little does she know I'm first time driving, right? So I'm very nervous, extremely nervous. But she was like, take some time, come back tomorrow. I went back the next day, ended up getting my license and went home like, hey, I got the paper that I need. I got a license. And they're like, how did you do that? Right. But like finding ways, like in survival mode, honestly, like I knew that I lived 2 hours away and trying to commute and do all those things in college. How do you do that without having a vehicle, or how do you, waiting on buses and trains? And it just was a dangerous situation. So just making sure that I created opportunity for myself to be able to, like you said, sometimes not get those fundamentals from home, but it comes through survival. It comes through getting and seeing communities and stepping outside of yourself.
And it's a whole nother level to be like, I have to be this more resilient than maybe other students that I'm next to. Absolutely. And I've go ahead.
I was gonna say, I still had the same amount of homework, right? And still have the same amount of things to turn in, assignments and all of those things.
Yeah, I've had friends at Western who they never had their license the whole time that they were at Western.
Yeah.
And they didn't need to because like, oh, I'm on campus. Like I can walk wherever I need to. I can take the bus. Luckily, we can use the bus as students to go around the city, which is amazing.
Great system.
But then that person didn't need to get their license until they joined the workforce.
Right.
And then I was like, oh crap, I gotta get my license so I can drive to work. And then it becomes this huge thing where, other people might have gotten it just when they're 16, had somebody,
somebody taught them.
Yeah. Somebody took them to a parking lot. My mom took me to the parking lot. We drove around and then, I was ready. But then you have other situations. Is a silly side story.
Yeah.
But I didn't get my license until I think I was 17 or 18.
Okay.
And it was because I was born in Louisiana. and there was a hurricane, I think it was Katrina. It happened, and the place where they keep the records and stuff, I didn't have my birth certificate.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have my birth certificate. We lost it somehow.
Yeah.
And I need to get a new one. The building where it was destroyed, and they just said, "Well, we'll get back to you when we
right. We get a building, we get
right."
we can find a copy. Yeah.
I think I was 18 until I could actually get my license to get my birth certificate, so I could get my license. But then there's things like that where I'm just like simple things where like you just take for given, like my identification, my birth certificate, different things like that. That seem like not big things, but there might be people who don't have identification and they can't do those things. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one thing I love about Kalamazoo, right, is the opportunity to ensure that everyone has identification. Mm-hmm. That's something that's huge that Kalamazoo has taken on as an opportunity and a change agent, honestly, in this community, and hopefully is a beacon or like a support to other communities and giving them a model of what that looks like, because something as simple as identification, right, can change, the way that you get food, get housing, get your license, all of those things. And I think that people just don't really realize what Kalamazoo has done and how they are shaping and being a model, honestly, for this state and this country when it comes to like the Kalamazoo Promise and other things that they're doing.
Yeah, it's small enough and yet big enough that we can try things out here.
Exactly.
And if it works, it sticks around. If it doesn't, then we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome about Kalamazoo. Okay, next question. What's your story and who are you? Go back as far as you want. Share whatever details you feel like sharing, and take as much time as you need. And if you take too much, I'll say something.
Yeah, stop. Who am I? I am a change agent / opportunity optimizer / survival perseverer, right? Like I think we talked about a little bit earlier about going back to like K through 12 for me. I grew up in a house where like reading was a punishment, which I think is so, like we talk about parenting, right? Like for my mom, it was sit here and read this dictionary because you got in trouble. So now as an adult, I'm unlearning that and how important it is to like use knowledge as a tool. And that's something that I'm really unlearning and relearning and going through therapy with and all of those things, because I think that K through 12 time is so pivotal. The Detroit public school system, I was there, early 2000s. A lot of changes were happening. The crisis happened and all of those things. So teachers were being laid off. Classrooms had like one of my classrooms, I remember having like 46 students. And we were all like sitting on the floor. Some of us were standing. We didn't have enough books. Wow. I do remember that, having very rundown books throughout middle school. So like because we didn't have the tools that we needed and the resources that we needed, education for me was a little fluid, right? It was around the time where cursive, they were trying to figure out if we wanted to keep it in school, take it out of school. It was a crazy time, right?
My signature is great. So I thank KPS for
that. And it was a crazy time. I was just talking to my intern, and she's I think 3 years younger, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't learn cursive." And I'm like, that was a real time for education, that there were a lot of changes being made to just think 3 years difference. And gratefully, I know how to write in cursive, but I definitely think it was a time for me and me as a person. It was a lot of development that happened during that time. I was able to go to Cass Technical High School, which is one of the top high schools in the state of Michigan, and I'm just very grateful for that. And also in the city of Detroit, just really grateful for that and the opportunities, because it is downtown Detroit. It exposed me to a lot, right? Like I'm from the west side of Detroit, 7 Mile and Evergreen area, where the median income is, I think, $14,000. I just looked this year. So imagine then what it was. If it's $14,000 right now today,
it's less than that.
It's way less than that, right? So just being able to come out of 48219, that zip code, and grow my and create opportunities for myself and learn from those that I was around. I think for me, it was a very pivotal time to understand that you may be in this environment, but this is not the only environment that you have to be in, right? Like I go home every weekend to that same zip code, visit that family, and come back here, right? Like, so just having to even do that switching in my mind sometimes can be hard. So for me, it's just been taking opportunities as they come. I've been always very an innate advocate, right? At first, when I was younger, it was you talk too much, right? Or stay in a child's place, or whatever those sayings, right, that we would have. But I think for now, I've learned that it's just advocacy, and that's just my passion, and that's what drives me.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's amazing to see people who are in a certain environment and then go to another and say, like, I'm going to bring everything that I brought from here, learned everything that I had, and then take it here and see how I can improve things.
Absolutely. And
same vice versa. You see something in another community and you try and apply it in another space, see if it works. If it doesn't, move on. But always being able to advocate for those people who, might not have a voice.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I commend you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so where'd you go to college?
Went to Western.
Okay, go Broncos.
Go Broncos, right?
We've had a lot of Broncos on here. This is Broncos in the room. I like it.
Yes. Went to Western, got there, like I said, in 2014, graduated 2018. During my time at Western, I became the first Black woman to be the student body president at the institution. It's a great thing, right? Because it's 103 years the institution had been around, but to think to be the first, right, is a lot of pressure. It's a lot that comes with that, and it's also unfortunate, right, that we're just not getting to this place. In 2017 was the year that I became the president. So just a lot of reflection happened during that time. I joined a sorority. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Was able to learn about sisterhood and what that really means and how to create that for yourself. I don't have any sisters, so it was an opportunity to join a sisterhood and create opportunities and engage with women in community. I was in student government, like I mentioned, did some of that work on the state level and on the national level during my time in undergrad. So it gave me a lot of exposure to people in California and in Oregon that were doing student work, right, that were doing advocacy work. Yeah. But I just didn't have a word for it at the time. I was like, I love to help people, right? Yeah. I love to stand up for people, to be the voice.
Help people.
Yes.
Yeah.
To be the voice for people, but I didn't quite know what that meant. So started doing some work in public policy and doing some work, and then decided to stay during 2019. The new Kalamazoo Defender's Office was opening. So I have a background in criminal justice with a double minor in communications and sociology. So I just wanted to make sure that I stayed here. It was the first model. The Kalamazoo Defender's Office is the first model of its kind, especially in the state of Michigan, where you have 20 to 40 defense attorneys working in the same space. So I was like, how can I be a part of that, right? Like, right. I think this is an amazing opportunity, especially because I had worked on the prosecutor's side. So I wanted to make sure that I had a well-rounded experience and a well-rounded exposure to the law, because I think that oftentimes people go to school and they're like, hey, I want to do this one thing, and they stay on this path, and but how do you really understand, until you understand the full scope of everything? I don't think you can be a really good advocate, because I think you have to understand both sides.
Right.
So just want to take the opportunity to do that, stayed in this community, and then from the work that I was doing with the anti-racism team at the Defender's Office, ended up getting this role, applying to this role. The former executive director was retiring, and people had heard about the work that I was doing with the anti-racism team there as the facilitator, and I was like, hey, I think you can do this role here. And I was like, oh, you think? So took a chance on myself. I have always wanted to be an executive director of a nonprofit, but just thought it would be later on in my career, as that is what was modeled to me, in your 40s and 50s, you get to that executive role. It's like, okay, great. So for me, it was 24. So I always tell people to just take that opportunity, step out on faith. You may not understand why people are putting your name in rooms that you're not in, but, to have those advocates for you, those change agents in community for you, just taking that in. And I encourage people in this community to do the same.
Yeah. I mean, if you have the skills to do that, why not?
Right.
That it doesn't need to be 30 years of experience.
No.
And then, now I'm ready. If you've already put in the work, you already know the things. And then also people already see that you're doing it.
Yeah.
Why not put you in that role that you can do more?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, looking at people younger, right? Like, you don't have to wait until you're 30 years in to get to this role. You can do it now, get this experience, learn from it. You might not have, it might be 10 qualifications. You might have 7 of the 10, but still take that opportunity to apply, right? Yeah. And I think that's what's I encourage others to do in community to because you can learn some things as well as you're in the role. So
yeah. And then even when you're talking about your time in college, the different mentorship, sisterhood,
Absolutely.
all those experiences you had, they also exposed you to new things that, you know, some people when they go to college, they just go to class,
Yep.
and go home. I did that when I was at KVCC. I was
Okay.
like, I mean, to me, it kind of felt like, because I was younger, I was like, this just feels like high school, but I have to pay for it. Like that
It's an
was
expensive bill to have.
that was my mindset, and so I just came back, came back. And then it wasn't until like Western that I started to see like, oh, there's RSOs and
Yes.
registered student organizations for people who don't know, but different groups that you could go and check out, and they would kind of like fill you with experiences, and then you learn more about different opportunities. And so like I hear bits and pieces of that like while you were giving your story.
Yeah.
I'm like, that should be a thing for everybody, you know?
Yeah, as much as you can get involved in, like you said, those leadership opportunities, right?
Mhm.
Like, even if it is a student organization, like as a student body president, I was representing 23,000 students, right? With one voice. So
Yeah.
just making sure that like you step into those roles and those opportunities, because oftentimes those experiences at that time, I didn't realize, right, that was developing me and getting me to this place that I am today. But those opportunities really do make a difference. Like you said, in undergrad or even at KVCC, I was just over there and I was on a leadership summit. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we talked about things that students can do or people can do in community to develop their leadership. And one thing that I always recommend is a business card. I don't care how young you are.
Right.
Even if it has your name. I still have mine from my freshman year, second semester. It has my name on it, the school I went to, my major, things that don't change, right? Like my phone number, email, those type of things. Because that really does make a difference when you step into a room. And that's how I ended up with so many connections. It's like, hey, can I get your business card? Oh yeah, I have one too. Right. And people are like, oh, you know, and now we have QR codes and things like that that we use. I have an app on my phone as well that I use as a means of communication. But definitely think that like that's how you create a network of people behind you.
Exactly. And then the value of networking with
Yes.
people is crazy. Cause I just stuck to my friends. Like I was just like, I don't want to go talk to people. Like,
Right. Yeah. Like, why do I need to know my professor?
I was
Right.
like, that's right. That was a big thing for me. I was just like, more school.
Yeah. More time, more office hours.
But man, my grades drastically changed.
Yes. Yes. When you get to know them and they know you, right? Like we talk about like knowing someone's story in the beginning of this conversation is like, once they know what you're going through, they can support you.
Right.
And that's what they're really there to do, is really to support you, give you a helping hand. And sometimes people need different levels of support. And you might not know exactly what that is in that moment, what you need, but like they can try to, hey, let's see if this sticks, right? Like, hey, do you need extra time? Like I greatly appreciate the professors at Western Michigan University for listening, for supporting, for knowing, like, even if you're involved in, you know, student organizations, like, hey, this is taking up my time, but I can do this. Can I take this test early? Those type of things. They're making those accommodations because people just don't know, you know, that saying of like closed mouths don't get fed.
Right.
Like people just don't know what they don't know. Right.
Right.
Like, so like, how can I make sure that I can support you and what that looks like? So.
No, you said it. All right. So what motivated you to get where you are now? I know you touched on it a little bit, but if there is any like key things that stuck out, maybe like a mentor or just like a moment that you were like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. I think since the furthest memory back I have is 8 years old. And it was sitting in front of the TV, and I used to watch like judge shows. It probably sounds crazy, but you know, like Judge Mathis, Judge Judy, and all of those individuals. And they, to me, had a voice. Right, that they used. They had opportunity. They were able to honestly change a person's life in an hour episode. So, you know, for me, it was like, how can I use the voice that I have? I didn't quite know that I had one at first, but over time, I've learned that like your voice matters. It impacts people, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, like a legacy. Things that I implemented in 2017 as a student body president, we see at Western today. Right, like I don't get to be in a nice dorms and things like that. But like, it was something that I was advocating for years ago, right? That fruit is coming to fruition today. So just making sure that I'm leaning into that in every aspect of my life when I'm doing the work that I do today, right? Like when we talk about racial equity work and what it looks like today, thinking about 10 years from now, what that will look like. It's, you know, in 2020, we had changes that happened there, but like, how do we make sure that this stays relevant? that this is not just something that comes and goes in community, that it's at the top of everyone's radar. So that's really what motivates me, is how do I continuously improve myself, engage in community on the, not only on the local level, but on the state level. I just got involved in the last year. I was appointed by the governor to be on the Commission for Law Enforcement Standards. So it's called MCOLS. And that was after the murder of George Floyd. We were out protesting in community. This was in 2020. And I was like, I'm going to apply for this position and learn more about it and engage, because that's what Chiante can do with her area of influence. And that's what I did, applied, was able to do that. And now I sit on a commission where we support officers when it comes to their standards, when it comes to how they're engaging in community. And it's on a state level. And I think that that's super important, because we can't always change things from the bottom up. Sometimes it's from the top down. Right. So like just making sure that I'm at all levels so that I can support and do what I need to do and what I can do in those rooms. So that's what motivates me. It's like, how do I make sure that years from now people don't have to do or deal with some of the things that I'm dealing with today?
Right. And sometimes like you have to initiate that spark.
Yes.
That gets things going. But then also, how do I make sure this continues?
Absolutely.
Make sure it's not a spark that fizzles out.
Yeah.
You don't want to come in and shake everything up and then they're like, we're not doing that anymore.
Exactly.
No, that's amazing. So next question, what would it be if you could do anything to transform the Kalamazoo community, regardless of politics, money, people, just whatever you wanted to do? What would it be?
That's a loaded question. What would I want? Oh, let's see. I think it would be an opportunity for one thing that I just came back from Canada. I took some time in Canada over the weekend, and healthcare. If everyone could get healthcare benefits or support in this community free of cost, I think we would have a healthier way of living. Just being over there, we talk about, how Canadians are so nice. Like, their health, right? They make sure that their health, their education, those necessities, honestly, are taken care of. And I think that if we could do that here in this community, in all communities, right, but specifically in Kalamazoo, because we do have so many resources, if that was a barrier that could be removed for people, I think we would show up better in community. Even as an executive director, one of the things I implemented was like wellness. Like, how do we, and it's not a trip, once a year, right?
I think It's not a one-off thing.
It's not a one-off thing, right? So for me, I monthly offer wellness to our staff because I just think that that's important, that we offer not just benefits, right? Like, yes, you can go to the doctor, you can go to the hospital, what have you, but like letting the staff define wellness. If that's going to get a massage, if that's paying your bills, if that's going to get your car light fixed, whatever that thing is, right? Like taking the opportunity to just support them in that way and taking my hands off of it. So I think if we really focused in on wellness and what that really means for this community, that would be a way to just see a difference, to see a change. Because that's one of the things that I think really could be supported in this community more.
Yeah. I like what you said about wellness, like saying, what is it that you need that will help you in the day to day? Because that, for me, it'd be working out, consistently. But for some people, it might be, I just need to, I just need an hour
nap.
Back.
Nap. Look,
and I'll come back, recharge, ready to go. And that's big. I never thought of wellness that way. Like I thought of mental health and all the different new things that we've been talking about, but not just what do you need? And
it changes, right? Day to day, right? Like today I might need just 5 minutes, but next week you might need 10, right? Like just figuring out what that is for you and understanding that it's fluid. So that's something that I've really have been lifting up within the organization, but also I'm hoping that in this Kalamazoo community that we lift up is that wellness changes over time and each person is different, right? And leaning into that. So that's why, like I said, we do a stipend. What you do with that is what you do with that. Just know that we are supporting you in your wellness and what that looks like. And just making sure that we're doing that. For us, it's weekly, but just making sure that, like you said, that person takes that time every day to do that because we are living in some hard times. So just being more mindful from hour to hour, things can change. So
no, that's big. I mean, I just think about like all the different barriers and everything. Like if you want to eat healthier,
it's so expensive.
It's expensive.
Talk about it.
Like, yeah, I see some head nods.
Yes. It's expensive, organic, and all, like especially when you know better, you want to do better. But it's like, my check says I can't, right. Like I'm stuck in this box. But
and then you feel guilty
exactly
that you're not eating healthier, and then that stress,
it's a barrier.
Yeah, that comes from it.
Yeah.
I like that idea. We might need to try and have that happen here, but I'll just.
So don't give me no trouble.
You won't get in trouble. I might get in trouble. They'll be like, John, why you stirring the pot? But,
hey, stir the pot, though. Gotta stir the pot.
Yeah, I'll just be sitting here stirring the pot. Okay, so what are some of your favorite things about Kalamazoo?
Aside from the community, I just love the access to events. I think like the events, I know like we have the new event center and other things that are popping up, but like I love like how Discover Kalamazoo has this calendar. It's like these are all the things that are going on in the community.
Yeah. And
you could pick and choose what you want to participate in. And I just think that that's such an amazing thing for our community to have, because especially for someone that's coming from out of town, right? Yeah. Like someone that may not be from here, it's a one-stop shop. You can stop here. This is where all the events are going on. This is where you can find this information. And like you said, I think Kalamazoo's small enough that you can wrap your arms around it, but it's also big enough that like, oh, this is new. Oh, this has popped up. Oh, I could try this new restaurant. Yeah. So it kind of gives you like that medium community where it's not too small, but it's not too big, and you can, touch and go with community. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and you had mentioned before, like Dabney and Company and the other like local places. Yes. Those are coming up, and it's like, okay, but the community sees it, and they're like, hey, this is Black-owned cocktail lounge. Like, we need to support it. Excellent. And we've shown up in that way.
Yes.
So I think that's that's just one of the things I've noticed about Kalamazoo. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, you don't. Like, yes, the out-of-town people will come and visit and be like, oh, this is great. But, like, the local people are also like, we need to support this.
Absolutely. And like you said, like, as we're growing, as the community's growing, just making sure that we're being intentional about supporting, right? Like, I think that is something that I've been seeing in community. Because, yes, we can open up a restaurant, we can open up a art show, what have you. People won't show up. But to actually see the community showing up, supporting one another, Ties join. And when we talk about Twine, just other organizations and other restaurants that are showing up in community and us showing up and supporting, I think is super important. And it's growing over time.
Yeah, as the relationships.
Yeah.
Like people know each other, and they're like, oh, you're trying to start this? You're trying to all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be at the opening. We'll, show up, come every once in a while, share things on Facebook, social media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even for us at Share, we do bingo trivia nights around African American history of people from Kalamazoo. And one of the things that I did last year was make sure that I support a Black-owned business and bought vouchers, like gift vouchers, gift certificates, so that we can give those out as prizes in community, right? Like, go get a meal on us at Ties Joint. Go get a meal on us at, other organizations or other restaurants in the community. And that's a way to support, right? To go solicit these businesses, get people in community to get their students, staff, just people in community, just making sure that we're supporting them in that way as well as organizations, which I think is also important. Yes, we can do it as individuals, but as an organization, we need to be supporting Black-owned businesses when it comes to catering and other things as well.
You're dropping some gems.
But if we don't talk about it, right? Like, we talk about racial equity, which is what we're about. Like, how do we make sure that we're putting those dollars back into our communities in a way that's effective at the price that they have, right? Like, not trying to, because we're cousins, right? Like, can I get a discount? Just making sure that, like, hey, this is your price. I can pay that. Let me do that. How can I support you in that? So I think that's how you see businesses grow. That's how you see wealth and equity come back into a community. So just making sure that we're being intentional about that, not only as individuals, but like I said, as organizations stepping up into that.
All right, organizations, promise we got to step up. We do
you do a great job.
We do stuff, but there's still some stuff that, like you're saying, I'm like, oh, we should.
Yep, and take those ideas, right, and let them bubble. And that's the hope.
I know I don't want to misspeak and say we don't do that, because I know we do. Like, we get catering from different places.
Absolutely.
And
we all do.
We try to be equitable with it and get like different local places. We try to just do Kalamazoo stuff.
Yes.
But the way you put it into words of how we support, I'm taking mental notes of like, I like that. I like how you phrase that.
Yeah. Like I said, for us, it was just how do we take prizes that we would give away anyway, right? To winners of a bingo trivia, and be intentional about using a Black or supporting a Black-owned business, right? Like, how do we make sure that we're just being intentional about, we're going to do it anyway.
Right.
Just be more intentional about how we're
instead
going to
of
do
just
it.
some like chain.
Yeah, a chain restaurant. We could always go to Panera or, somewhere else in community. Nothing against Panera.
Right.
But just, how do we make sure we support, like you said, local-owned business as well as Black-owned business is super important.
All right. Here's another big question for you.
Yeah.
It might be, I don't know. If the Kalamazoo Promise was available to you, how would that have changed things for you?
I wouldn't have the debt that I have right now.
Okay.
Right? And I think about that all the time because that is a barrier. Honestly, we had a little bit of a break with the deferment during 2020 and all of those things, but those bills are due, So I just think that it's an amazing opportunity that not only do you have the opportunity to use the promise, but the 10-year time frame that you have, right? Because everybody doesn't come out of high school ready to jump into college, right? So maybe you want to take some time off, you want to work, you want to do whatever you need to do, adjust, and then go to school. So I think that that's amazing. And even the opportunity to do trade, right? Like to do something else outside of, undergraduate education, to have that opportunity to do that. And I think that that's what we're seeing more now. People are leaning into doing trades, and the fact that the Kalamazoo Promise is shifting, right? And saying like, hey, we see this shift. How can we support you even if you're deciding not to do a 4-year institution here in the state of Michigan? So I think that that's super important. But for me, I think definitely if I had the promise, I would, when we think about generational wealth, right? Like that, the promise is creating generational wealth, taking away those barriers for students, for young people in community.
Yeah. And having debt, it just sets you back.
It does.
And then whatever that money would have been spent on is going to that. And then if you don't have that, then you're looking at, okay, this is going to my house. This is going into my kids' savings account. This is going into their education.
Right.
If they even need it, if we stay in Kalamazoo, then.
But at least you have it, right? Like whatever you want to use it for. So, yeah, I definitely think it creates amazing opportunities, like you said, for generations to come, which I think is what's most important about the Kalamazoo Promise. It's not what you see today. It's those generations that you won't see, that you're making those changes for and you're developing. So,
and it's tough to quantify that.
Exactly.
This is going to change generations from now.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many educated people coming from Kalamazoo, taking what they learned here in our community with all the resources and how we're all innovative, take those and, it impacts so many other places. So even if we don't retain that talent, it's still going somewhere else to benefit like the whole world basically.
Exactly. And like you said, like even if as a parent or as someone that, goes to school and get education, most times the next generation will just supersede you by 1 degree, right? Like, so if someone has the opportunity now to get their doctoral degree, just imagine where the next generation will be by the time, and then to be debt free in that, right? Possibly, potentially, is amazing. It's an opportunity that's honestly mind blowing. But just very grateful to be in a place where that is possible for community, for students, and the possibilities are endless.
You said it. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know what else to say, but I wish it was available to you, like while you were going to school.
Me too. If you all would have adopted me a little bit earlier, would have been right in here. But grateful for the opportunity to be here to see it come for others, because it's life changing, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of feel like the excitement about it kind of wore off.
Yes, of course, like anything else.
Like it's a given thing now,
right?
But it's like it takes the people who didn't have it to say like, this is amazing. Like, this is a blessing. This is something that you shouldn't just take for granted.
Right.
And say like, this is something that I wish I had, for other people.
And not only the money, but the resources, right? Like the resources that you all provide as well, to couple with the funding, I think it's unstoppable. Like, I think, and of course, as you all are learning more, you're growing more and making those changes, it can do nothing else but improve. So that's amazing.
Yeah. All right. If you had a gold nugget of information that you would share with someone who'd like to do the same work as you, what would it be?
Take that chance. Take that opportunity. So many times I've been given opportunities and I'm like, oh, like I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm qualified for this, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I think oftentimes we get in our own way. So many times we will stop ourselves at the door. And if you're just taking that step on the other side of that threshold, you would be so much further than where you are today. So I would definitely say just take the opportunity. I call myself like an opportunity optimizer. How do I make sure that whatever this is, that it grows me, I learn from it, and then I move on to the next thing and grow from that, right? And continuous development, I think, is super important. So, yeah, just take that opportunity, take that chance, take that risk. You only live once, but if you do it right, once is all you need.
Yeah.
So it's a quote by someone that I think it's John Lewis. But, yeah, if you do it once, you only get it once. So take those chances on yourself.
Okay. I like that. I mean, when I got the email about this job, I was like, I guess.
Right, yeah, it's like, am I me? Maybe.
And I took the chance. It was because I just passed, like, I thought I was going to get another, like, promotion job.
Yeah.
Didn't get it. And then I was like, I guess, like, why not?
Yeah.
And this has been the best job I've ever had.
So, yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. And then even like doing this podcast, when I was talking to Dr. John, who did deep dives with Dr. John.
Yes.
I was presenting it as like, hey, we should do this podcast, with community partners, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, yeah, well, why don't you do it? Why don't you just do it? And I was like,
okay,
I guess, like, but even this is an opportunity because I never considered myself like a good public speaker and talking to people. Like I was always introverted. Wow. And I was like, this is really outside
taking you out
of
of comfort zone.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. But I think at every opportunity that I've had here, they've pushed me to do more.
Yep.
And I've felt comfortable enough to say, all right,
let's do it.
I'll give it a chance.
Yep.
Why not? And it's turned out all right. So
you're doing great.
Thank you. So, I like that gold nugget of information. Do you have any questions for me?
No questions. I just want to say thank you, honestly, for this opportunity to be here. Ways to stay engaged, maybe. I can let the people know that. Share Society for History and Racial Equity is at KAZOO.org. Really excited. We have some exciting things coming up in the new year. Reading Race. We partner with the Kalamazoo Public Library. So on January 9th from 6:30 to about 7:45, people can come and have discussions about, the book is called The Second. So it's an opportunity for people to get to know each other and engage in community around like these topics, right, around racial equity and racial work. I just think it's super important. Sometimes you connect through books, right? Sometimes so having different opportunities for people to engage and to learn from one another. So that's one of our things that we have coming up next week. So super excited about that and for that opportunity.
Nice. I know. I just want to say thank you because way back we did a training with you.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, and we talked about the touchstones,
yes.
and we still use those.
Oh, good.
So we still use those when we go. So for people listening, do you want to explain the touchstones or touchstones?
Touchstones, yeah. So the touchstones are ways to engage with each other in a meeting or in a shared space, and it's deep listening is one of them. Just making sure that you're not just waiting to respond to someone, leaving judgment at the door, those type of things. There are about 12 touchstones, and you agree to those. You can also add to those as you're in community or in a conversation. And from that moment forward, the discussion will be different, right? Because I think oftentimes we're in a situation where we're bringing our own selves to the situation or to the conversation, but using the touchstones takes you out of your comfort zone, especially if you're new to them, to be able to engage with people in a more respectful and more open manner. So glad to hear y'all still using them.
We still use them.
That's great.
They're still around, like, pinned up somewhere.
Yes.
But in
people's offices.
Yeah, in the producer's office, he's got them pinned up because it is useful. It is very useful to know that if I'm having a conversation with someone or we're trying to discuss something, I'm not only bringing my perspective.
Exactly.
And I actually value what they're bringing as well.
Yeah, and to understand that they might have a different perspective, right? Like they may not be thinking the same way that you're thinking. That's what it always helps me, especially in this work of racial equity, right? Everyone has their own understanding of it. They have their own lived experiences. So there's no one size fits all. So just that always helps me. It's always a gentle reminder. Like you said, in my office, I have them sitting so I can see them when I'm on my laptop on Zoom, right? So it's just a gentle reminder that everyone's coming to a situation at a different place, myself included, because every day is different, right? Because I may have a lived experience that happened to me that day that changed how I feel about something. So just making sure that I'm being mindful of that, taking that time to just even deeply listening. I don't think oftentimes we hear you, like you'll hear someone, but are you really listening to what they're saying? Right. And sometimes they don't even need a response. Sometimes they want you to hear them, and that's it. And I think we oftentimes are just like, oh, how can I help? How can I add to the conversation? Or if I don't say something, it's taking away. And it's like, no, if you have nothing to add, or sometimes you don't have to add. And that's okay. And that's what we do in our racial healing circles and those experiences. So,
no, it definitely helped here.
Yes.
I know it stuck around. It was a spark, and then it ended up, becoming this whole thing that we use regularly. I think you covered how people can reach out to you. Are there any other ways that people can get involved with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely our website is the best place to go to see information, up-to-date information. We also have Facebook, so it's Society for History and Racial Equity. So there's ways to engage. Also on YouTube, we have videos of interviews of oral history of people from this community, as well as some history about, how we got to where we are today. So I always encourage people to subscribe on our YouTube, jump on our Facebook to get more information. Also, you can stop by our office. We're downtown in the Marlboro building. We're always there. So just making sure you stop by, give us a call. So
nice. Well, thank you for sharing your story. People need to hear it. You're ready. Be confident and know that you have everything that you need.
Yes. Happy New Year. 2024 is here. Super excited.